DayBreak, Chapter 4, Flavor. Notorious flirt. Rarity didn't much appreciate the moniker, but she wore it well enough. She couldn't be said to ever lack a kind word or a genuine compliment or an appreciative reply. Certainly, she found herself giving and receiving most of such with those of the masculine persuasion, but she could be forgiven her preferences. Couldn't she? She could. The mare lounging on a couch decided. Her horn glowed as she raised a delicate glass to her lips and took a dainty sip. The other guests at the soiree also sat on lounges in a circle around the central food platter. Fancy Pants, the mayor of Canterlot, was to her right, and Fleur-de-Lis, who was looking as thin as ever, sat to her left. A few other guests of note, the owner of Barnyard Bargains, a rich viscount from the mountainside, a few hangers-on of the same, occupied seats at random around the room. 1,000 generous words floated through the mare's head as she searched for a pony to give them to. Then Prince Blueblood spoke up, and the mare in the lounge wished very much not to be Rarity at the moment.
What of you, Lady Rarity? I would have thought you element bearers would be tracking that vicious assassin down.
The blonde-maned prince's beverage has been diluted to the 10th degree by water sometime in the last few hours. He had still somehow managed to lose what little subtlety he possessed in the first place. The mare, who regretted being Rarity, sighed, brushing her purple curl out of the way of another sip of juice.
As difficult as it may be to believe, Your Highness, I'm afraid I'm not the first pony the guard looks to when recruiting adventurers.
That earned her a general chuckle around the circle of ponies. Rarity was a beautiful mare, there could be no mistake made, but she wasn't the most physically fit. She kept herself healthy, and that was the extent of her expedition in exercise. The Viscount munched on a cheesecracker hors d'oeuvre.
He has a point. It was only a few years ago that you were featured in just about every headline as the Knights of Generosity.
While that may be true, Viscount...
She briefly fumbled over his name. Some sort of stringed instrument, what was it?
Viscount Dulcimer. It sadly is not the case nowadays. Things change. While the connection between my friends remains strong, our powers cannot be said to be the cure-all and end-all for every problem that Equestria faces.
Well, surely you could do something.
Blueblood muttered into a glass of almost pure water.
Give the mare a break, husband,
Fleur said, hissing out the last word in a thick fancy accent.
Let the lady be and push on with the business.
I agree. Let's talk about a new business venture.
Fancy Pants smiled.
We should be careful about asking what more you can do, lest it be asked of us, also.
Blueblood narrowed his eyes and spoke no more. The mare silently thanked the two of them for forcibly removing her from the spotlight. There was a time to shine, and there was a time to pass barely noticed. She reclined more comfortably and faded into the background of the conversation. She paid the words no mind, unless they were to her directly. The words weren't why she was there. She was there for the emotions. There was a general excitement for most ponies of there. Mostly business owners and investors, it tasted like bubbles in the air, popping on the tip of her horn. There was a constant feeling of frustration from Blueblood as he struggled to keep up despite the fog in his brain. That tasted, no surprise, like alcohol, tart and musty. A similar, duller annoyance rose from Fleur as she beheld her husband's antics. But there was a subtler strain running through the gamut, a hint of an almost flavor, contained and repressed. The mare who called herself Rarity shut her eyes tight, and she tried to discern its source. It had spice. It had vigor.
Lady Rarity.
The mare's eyes snapped open. Filthy Rich of Barnyard Bargains gave off an aura of light, silky concern.
You feeling alright?
I'm sorry, I was just...
The mare cursed to herself for neglecting to keep up appearances as she scrambled for an excuse.
I was just trying to imagine what the project would look like.
That was what artists did, she told herself. They visualized.
That's where my construction company comes in, Miss Rarity.
Viscount Dulcimer's horn glowed as they lifted schematics into the air.
A 4-story building is already under construction for our indoor marketplace. Once it's done, all we need to do is move your respective stores in and rent out the rest of the space to any pony who cares to join up. A marketplace, raking in the cash, rain or shine, in downtown Canterlot no less.
Blueblood smirked at Fleur.
Not a bad investment, if I do say so myself.
Fleur shrugged.
It's your cash to invest, husband.
The mayor faded out of the conversation, focusing once more on the emotions. This time, she was careful to at least look like she was listening. There. That was the spice, the vigor, the faintest hint of ill will. The anticipation of something horribly wrong going horribly right. Again, she couldn't immediately discern the source, but the target? Blue blood. Just as expected. Someone wanted something very bad to happen to him. Someone was looking forward to that certain something, maybe even catalyzing the awfulness into action. But who? Fancy Pants was Blue Blood's buddy from their school days, perhaps the prince's only real friend. He put up with his antics regularly. That was the history the mayor knew. On closer inspection of the stallion's disposition, she found only the bubbling excitement of a dinner party, and a refreshing splash of interest in Viscount Dulcimer's project. Fleur-de-Lis, wife of Blue Blood, the result of a marriage of convenience, some said, in which his bankroll was enriched and her status elevated. Others said it began in love, but soon soured like old milk. Either way, she harbored the most open negative feelings about the prince. But there was no spice. No edge. It wasn't her. Filthy Rich was awash in a sour field of self-disappointment, hidden beneath his outer wall of genial interest. The servants were focused on their duties, leaving little room for diabolical plans, and the other prospective business partners were checked off one by one as the mayor, calling herself Rarity, examined them. Then, she focused on the Viscount and found the source. She lifted her perception from the emotional layer to the visible. She saw how even in the midst of his presentation, his eyes kept flickering from the blueprints to Blue Blood. The spice intensified when a third object intersected his gaze. An unopened bottle. The bottle was being saved for the toast. Could it be poisoned? In conclusion, Viscount Dulcimer said, as the mayor focused on his voice, Prince Blueblood is correct when he says the indoor marketplace is a wise investment. Shall we drink to a successful business venture? The servants came and poured glasses for all those present. The mayor looked into her own. Was the Viscount planning to poison all of his business partners? It made no sense. The flavor of his ill will was directed only at the prince. She turned her eyes to Dulcimer and watched him down his whole glass, a smirk on his face. Immunity was possible, but highly unlikely. It didn't add up for him to be the only investor still alive. He would be caught instantly. Blue Blood swirled his drink around, and he brought the glass to his lips. The mild spice running from the Viscount to the prince jumped from bell pepper to habanero. The hair on the back of the mare's neck stood up. It was time to either act or watch a pony die. She coiled her legs beneath her, leapt over the hors d'oeuvre table, and knocked the glass out of his magical grip. The room went silent as every pony stared at her. She ducked her head and grinned.
Would you believe me if I said it was poisoned?
The door slammed open. A disheveled mare walked in, one with a pure white coat and a purple mane. Her frown was intensified by the wave of boiling anger rolling towards the mare who called herself Rarity. Worst of all, the two of them seemed to be wearing the same dress.
That mare,
the newcomer said with an accusatory hoof,
is an imposter!
It was at that point that the mare who called herself Rarity noticed several servants carrying hidden blades underneath her coat sleeves. She also noted that calling herself Rarity was a moot point. The disheveled Rarity stalked towards the accused.
She drugged me with some sort of magic and left me in a closet! A broom closet! Arrest her at once!
The servants looked at Blue Blood, waiting for him to make the call. The prince's already foggy mind had no hope of coping with the circumstances.
Grab her,
the Viscount helpfully supplied. The servants rushed her. With no other options in sight, the mare sprouted wings from her back and flew to the ceiling. They were thin, translucent, membranous wings. Once at the top, she flipped over and grabbed the plaster with cloven, claw-like hooves. The real Rarity shrieked.
Dear darling creator, it's a changeling!
Kill it!
Blue Blood said, some semblance of wit re-entering his head.
Bring it down!
The changeling dove down through the doors, passing by Rarity along the way. She ducked as it flew overhead, its disguise disappearing in a burst of green fire. The servants chased after the changeling. Once they had gone, Rarity put a smile and turned to the other business ponies in the room.
I trust the meetings went well?
The changeling ran into a branching corridor. Once it was out of sight, it climbed up to the ceiling. The servants followed it, failing to look up when they rushed past it. Its chest heaved while it waited a few moments before dropping down. It raced through the blue blood wing of Canterlot Castle, searching for an out-of-the-way room to take a new face. It was a stroke of genius to use a pony whose whole life had been recorded by the media. Plenty of openly available history. That part of the plan went exceedingly well. That said, next time the changeling needed to take more care in making sure that the pony wasn't a light sleeper. The clack of armor sounded throughout the castle as the general alarm was sounded. The changeling sighed in relief as a hideaway came into view. A broom closet that wasn't the one Rarity had been napping in. Just as the changeling reached it, a shout came from the end of the hallway. "Changeling!" A spear hit the wall right beside the changeling. It yelped and took off at a full gallop, its wings beating and its hooves scraping the marble floor. Its multi-faced eyes widened. It was heading away from most of the escape routes it had planned out if the operation went south. The air shimmered as a fireball zipped past. The changeling narrowed its eyes. There was only one viable exit strategy. It turned down one corridor and jumped straight at a stained glass window. The glass rattled as the changeling's body collided with it, and the creature was thrown to the ground. There wasn't nearly enough time to craft a new face before the changeling was surrounded by spear points.
"What are you waiting for?"
Blue Blood said from the rear.
"Stab it! Don't let it get away!"
The changeling swallowed the phlegm building up in its throat. It turned to one of the guards.
The gig is up, Ugly. They've caught us.
The guards turned as one to face Bugly, and with their attention elsewhere, the changeling zipped out from among them like an arrow from a bow. It flew through the corridors of the castle in a mad rush, not paying much attention to where it was going. Its journey took it to a long, thin bridge between two towers, a skyway. At one end, two unicorn guards and a pegasus were barring the way. The changeling was flying so fast that it didn't come to a stop until it was in the middle of the skyway. A quick glance said that yes, the glass enclosing the bridge was thicker here than at the stained glass windows. The skyway was soon blocked off at the other end by more soldiers, backed by the prince. The changeling lowered itself to the floor and spread its forelegs wide.
I surrender.
Most of the soldiers stopped their forward rush, though they kept their weapons and horns trained on the changeling. However, Prince Blueblood didn't get the memo. He shouldered a golden armored guard aside and lit his horn. He fired a blast of half-focused, half-raw magic energy at the changeling, which spiraled down the skyway in a tornado of crackling lightning. Instinct took over. The changeling leapt over the maelstrom of murderous energy, letting it glide past unhindered. It continued to the three soldiers on the other side, the leftmost unicorn's armor glowing bright yellow as its built-in shield enchantment worked to save the guard from being torn apart by the drunken spell. Metal shrieked and hair singed as the wayward spell exploded in a ring of light and force. The ring cut through the top and bottom of the skyway, severing it from the tower. Thanks to the designers, the bridge was supported fully by its connection to the far side, though it still wobbled in the force of the destruction. The two unicorn guards slumped to the ground as smoke billowed out of their end of the corridor, produced by melting glass, burning carpet, and the after effects of a crazed spell impacting a sturdy enchantment. The Pegasus jumped through the smoke. The guard's hoof glowed, his armor enchantment adding an extra boost to his strength. The changeling ducked the punch, then skittered between the guard's legs. It held its breath as it moved through the heavy smoke, seeking shelter on the far side. It found shelter in the form of a quiet guest bedroom, long unoccupied save for a weekly cleaning. The clank of armor through the castle was slower, cautious, and searching. They'd find the room soon enough, but the changeling would be gone before then. It looked in a mirror and beheld a nightmare. A nightmare to ponies, at any rate. Black armored exoskeleton, blue-green multifaceted eyes, long fangs, a scraggy horn. It lifted its hooves to its face. Holes bored through its forelegs, its wings were torn and perforated. Its ears were low and scratched. It took a few steps away, its hooves close together as though it was afraid to do anything besides just inch backwards. It kept its head low and its shoulders hunched. Its horn sparked with green fire that gradually covered its entire body. When the flame extinguished, a new pony stared at the reflection. White coat, bleached blonde mane, pink eyes, color wheel cutie mark. A stallion of little merit and less fame. He dressed himself with a coat that he found discarded in the servants' quarters. He took a pass through the kitchen, took a tray piled high with food, and walked calmly through the castle. If any pony noticed him, they quickly ignored him. The one or two guards that questioned him brought his ready story immediately. even giving him an escort should he be accosted by roaming changelings. Or maybe they were following him to make sure that his story checked out. Either way, they let him go in the end. He delivered the food cart and headed straight for the exit. He passed by an argument near the doors between Blue Blood and Viscount Dulcimer.
I was just attacked by a changeling in broad daylight,
the prince said.
I am in no condition to continue the meeting.
But... The Viscount raised a hoof as the prince thundered off, accompanied by several guards. Dulcimer sat down beside the window the changeling had smacked into. Unlike the windows in the Great Hall, this did not have a scene from history inscribed on it. It was just patterns and colors. The Viscount was a sturdy, strong stallion, not quite as well-built as the prince, but close. His pink coat might have looked silly if he didn't carry it proudly. His purple beard was fashioned into a goatee, and his mane was pulled back in a ponytail. He turned to the disguised changeling as he passed.
What do you suppose the changeling wanted?
Beg your pardon, your grace,
the changeling said.
I don't think I know what's going on. Just been passing through when the alarm was sounded.
He hesitated a moment before carrying on. Viscount Dulcimer spoke up again.
What's your name?
The changeling cleared his throat.
Crispa, your grace.
The Viscount smirked.
Don't mind me too much. I remember what it was like to be a servant. Viscount isn't a hereditary title, after all.
He turned back to the window.
Fascinating cutie mark, by the way.
The changeling's eyes subconsciously went to the Viscount's cutie mark. An open fob watch.
Well, I suspect just about every mark has something important behind it, your grace.
Dulcimer went back to watching the window. Crisper trotted away at a polite pace, resisting the urge to dig into the emotional flavor of the air. Even a slight use of such magic might cause suspicion during a pony hunt. The changeling slipped out from underneath a guard's collective nose. The street in front of the castle bustled as reporters got wind of a new story breaking. Questions were flying about whether the attempt by a changeling on Blue Blood's life was connected to the near assassination from earlier that week. The changeling swam through the reporters, stood on the edge of the street, and clamped onto a passing carriage. He slid in through the door and took a seat across from a middle-aged mare.
It's Dulcimer, Chief,
he said.
There's no evidence, but the emotions came from him. He's the one who wants Blue Blood dead.
The curtains in the carriage were drawn, enclosing both occupants and shadows. The mare crossed her light gray forelegs.
Well, at least we know who to watch.
She sniffed the air.
Were you on fire, Blankety? I'm a changeling. It happens.
Blankety Blank tapped his hooves together.
So, my cover's blown. And how?
The chief rubbed her eyes.
We can't exactly let you jump right back in after that.
She brushed her purple white striped mane out of her eyes.
What exactly happened back there? My face pony woke up just after I knocked a cup of poison from Blue Blood's hoof.
He shrugged.
They put two and two together, and I tried to surrender since my cover was blown regardless, but Blue Blood wasn't taking any prisoners. So, you got out.
The chief leaned forward and patted her shoulder.
You did good. You saved Blue Blood's life and uncovered the pony responsible. I should have found some evidence, stopped him for good.
Blank said.
Now what?
The carriage stopped. The chief opened the door and led them into the back door of the Canterlot Police Department building.
Now, we get you the heck out of here until things cool down. Until the changeling attack becomes a fluke memory.
A pony ran up with a folder tucked under their wing.
Twilight Velvet, Chief. Canterlot Health has just reported a missing quart of ambrosia.
Police Chief Twilight Velvet took the folder and flipped through the pages.
Time frame?
Within the last couple of weeks, ma'am.
Right next to the assassination attempt. That's an odd coincidence if there is one.
Twilight Velvet shrugged.
Follow the thread. It might lead us to the whereabouts of this hurricane pony.
Twilight motioned for Blankety to enter her office. She closed the door behind him.
I'm gonna get you out of Canterlot, but I'm not going to send you far. Ponyville's pretty quiet right now, not a whole lot of snoops around, and my daughter will give you a nice place to get settled in.
Blankety Blank nodded, shuffling from hoof to hoof.
I recommend that you treat this as a vacation, Blank.
Twilight said. She sat behind her desk and pointed him to a chair.
Any work you do might just draw attention. I'd rather not lose my best asset. But I...
Blank rubbed his short mane.
I've never had a vacation before, Chief.
Twilight Velvet sighed. She activated the coffee machine she kept in her office.
Then think of this as a learning experience, a starting line to live like other ponies.
She poured them both a mug.
Besides, my daughter knows a dragon who can teach you a lot about being a pony.
Blankety Blank murmured contentedly as he guzzled his coffee. His eyes then snapped open.
Wait, what?
Do we have a potential changeling on the team? Because I think that we do. Hopefully we do, at least. Anyway, I'd love to give a very special thank you to my fantastic donators. Top donator, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, Dresdon, Dospo, RuneScythe9852, CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Rhyny Dragonwolf, Gaggy, Secret Moon, Tal Russia, The Toilet Snake, Soul Dragon, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David D. Sanchez, Trey, Pokekiller Zach, Dak Britton, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, James Dalton, and Teal K. Anderson. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.